Hello, everyone. My name is Mark Kageyama, and I'd like to welcome everyone here to Be Your Own Hero. I'm a stage 4 prostate, bone, and lung cancer patient slash survivor. Been dealing with cancer since late 2020, early 2021. Doing really well. And it is summertime here in Texas, and it has gotten hot. It is really hot. Yesterday was probably the hottest day of the year. It was I was here in the mid 105s and 106 and things like that. It was blazing today. I don't think is that much different, but it's pretty normal for this time of year here. But we've been really lucky because overall, we've had a lot this summer. We've had a lot of 80-degree days, which I'll take that any day, and it's been nice. But now the full blaze is here. I am so excited today to have a wonderful person named Linda Trummer, and she's in charge of a very large cancer group. And I'm not going to steal any of her thunder. I'm going to let her tell you all about it. But what we're gonna do is we're gonna start at the beginning of her journey, and she's a longtime survivor. In fact, she'll be a 10-year survivor come August, which, we're filming this on July 31st. So next month it will be her 10-year anniversary, which is absolutely fantastic. Linda, please introduce yourself, tell us who you are, and let's get going with a really great conversation.
Awesome, wonderful. Thank you, Mark. I'm Linda Trummer, and I'm in Minnesota. So we don't necessarily get 105 days, but we get hot and humid, and it's been raining a lot here, which is also unusual for our summers. Uh, I was diagnosed with my first cancer in 2015, a low-grade lymphoma with the initials MALT. It's also a non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. And then uh, soon thereafter, I was diagnosed with mantle cell lymphoma, blastoid variant, which is a rare incurable lymphoma. Uh, I was diagnosed around the time of my 60th birthday. I'll be 70 in August. So
Awesome.
I never thought I wasn't sure I'd see 61. So I'm very pleased to be alive.
That is fantastic. I love that. I love that. And we never know, you know, we can reflect back as survivors and and say, wow, it's amazing the progress that you've made, Linda, and I congratulate you because you had it rough. And we're going to talk about some of the things that made it very rough. So why don't we start at the beginning of your journey and tell us what happened, how you got diagnosed.
Sure. Um, Other than fatigue, which I thought was because I was working too hard. I My job was to be an outreach coordinator in an impoverished neighborhood with high crime, and so I worked a lot of hours, and it was a tough job, very rewarding, but a tough job. And so that's what I related the fatigue to. But I probably about 8 months before I was diagnosed, I had a lump on my parotid gland. And I really just thought it was a 60-year-old woman, bump. Never thought much more of it. It didn't hurt. I could feel it moving in there, but I ignored it. And then one day I was leaving a meeting and looked in my rearview mirror to back up and realized it had gotten larger. So I contacted my primary care provider, who was just amazing. She was an amazing woman. And she got me in right away for a PET scan. Uh, and then I went to an ENT who did a biopsy. The biopsy was sent out to three different locations because they couldn't identify it. And finally, I got a call that it was this low grade lymphoma. and I was referred to an oncologist. We have a cancer center in our city, which is a first ring suburb of Minneapolis. And it has a very good reputation. But mantle cell lymphoma, which came a bit later, is cancer, a tough cancer. And if you don't know how to treat it, your patients might not do very well. So but I went to this cancer center and spoke with this oncologist who, on my second visit, took my hand and said, "I promise you, we're not going to find anything more." And that just set wrong with me. That was like, the hair on my arms was standing up, and I decided I need a second opinion. And so I asked for a referral to another oncologist, same facility, and she did a full body exam and found a lump underneath my left arm and had a biopsy scheduled for that. That's where the mantle cell lymphoma was discovered. So I'm really grateful that I had that lump on my jawline because I had no other symptoms, my mantle cell might not have been diagnosed for quite some time. So she said we need to begin treatment, and I said, "Well, what happens if I don't?" And she said, "You're going to die." Which so it's like, well, okay, I don't want to die, so I suppose I should start treatment. Because it was a blastoid variant, which makes it more aggressive, I needed to hurry up and do the things that to um, figure out, what the plan should be for treatment. And so I had to have a bone marrow biopsy, and I had to have a tissue biopsy. And my heart needed to be checked to make sure I was in good health otherwise, because the chemo that they had decided on was a pretty toxic chemo and was going to be very hard on my body. I was in the hospital by October 1st of 2015, and I was still in the hospital at the end of October of 2015 because
A
I became very
long
sick.
time.
It was a long time to be in the hospital. Fortunately, I had many, many, many visitors, and they kept me attached to the outside world, so it wasn't quite as devastating to me as it might have been otherwise. I tell people my story, so it's not something I kept a secret. I told whoever wanted to listen, and so the treatment I found out was R-hyper-CVAD, and it's an acronym standing for a variety of different chemos. Um, and I was scheduled to have 8 sessions, which practically should have taken about, I don't know, maybe 6 months or so. But my platelets dropped to like between the 6 and 7 range, and I needed to bring them up to 100. You wanted to say something there?
Yeah,
No.
just for the audience, it should be it's 6 or 7 thousand, not 6 or 7. So if you only
Right.
have 6 or 7, you're dead.
Yeah, you're dead. But that's how we refer to them, 6 or 7, because 100 was what our goal was.
Right.
So my platelets were always low. My blood counts were very low. I was really in rough shape, and I was getting infections that were being treated. I had high fevers, and I couldn't leave the hospital. I would have died. It's lucky that I didn't die within that month because I had fevers of like 104 degrees. Um, Here's a funny story I can inject here, Mark. Um, because of my high fevers, I was getting delirious. And my son was visiting me after work one night. And I guess he left because I started talking incoherently, but he didn't tell anybody that I was speaking incoherently. He just left. At some point, the nurse came in to check on me and checked my temperature and found out it was 104 point something. And she started packing ice packs around me, putting ice packs around me to bring my temperature down. But in my mind, I thought she was asking me to help her distribute the ice packs to all the patients so we could bring their temperatures down. So I was getting up, trying to gather these ice packs to take to the other patients to save their lives when it was my life she was trying to save.
Wow.
That's how out of it I was. Yeah.
That's
So
scary.
pretty scary, yeah. So uh, at one point, they decided that I was at risk of having this cancer enter my central nervous system. Um, and so they started doing lumbar punctures of methotrexate, and I had six of them, which I really um, attribute a lot of the horrible side effects that I had later on. Um, I would always, well, first I should say, the cancer center I was going to only had two patients prior to me that had mantle cell lymphoma. So they really did not have a lot of treatment. And 10 years ago, things were a whole lot different in my cancer world because the knowledge wasn't available to the doctors who weren't learning by treating patients. And I didn't know any better. I knew that I had cancer. If I wasn't treated, I was going to die. The doctor was nice, the facility was nice, and I thought I was in good care. Um, but the chemo almost killed me. And uh, it took me a year and a half to get through treatment and get through the infections that I suffered along the way, which was a really long time. And I landed in hospice for 3 months. At some point, I was coherent enough to learn about palliative care. And so I called them from my hospital room because my doctor wouldn't make a referral. She was still of the impression that that was for people who were dying. And I wasn't, she didn't think I was dying. I thought I was dying. So a palliative care doctor started coordinating the care that I was receiving. And I really do credit her with saving my life. Um,
Let me pause you right there, and something's going through my mind. You were going through a gauntlet of treatments for a long period of time. How
mhm.
did you reconcile that in your mind? How did you uh, have the will to keep going? I mean, that's unbelievable.
Well, I'll tell you, really, and I think, honestly, I think the mind takes care of us. And sometimes it does crazy things. And I got really bad delirium. So I really didn't know how bad things were for me. I was living in an imaginary world most of the time. I was seeing giant spiders on the ceiling. Every night, a man with cowboy boots on, I only saw half of him and only from the waist down, would come and sit in the recliner next to my bed and watch TV. People would be there who didn't exist, who were talking to me. I was in this world where I really felt cared for and loved. And it wasn't the real world, but it was the world I was living in. And I really think it was my mind protecting me from the danger I was in. Um, so I think that's what helped me get through.
Wow, that I've never heard anybody say that. That is fascinating, absolutely fascinating, and especially for the duration and the length of time. That
Hmm.
that is a long, long time. So, wow, I'm just blown away. You know, I talk to like you. I talk to hundreds and hundreds of people, patients, survivors all the time, and it's fascinating to me when I hear something I've never heard before. It just it just blows me away that there's so much to learn. I learn every single day from people, and you don't get that information by reading. You get the information by meeting the people and hearing the stories because everybody's story, whether it's, no matter what kind of cancer that they have, everybody's story is different because
Hmm.
everybody is a different person and they inject their own personality into their story. So, wow. I'm glad I asked that question because I've never heard that before. So keep going on because there's a lot I want to cover with you.
Okay, sure. Well, then where would you like me to go? Because I can talk for hours and hours.
I know, so can I. We don't want to do that. Um,
No.
let's talk about your group and how you
Okay, sure.
started your group. And first tell us what prompted you to do that.
hmm I was looking for knowledge, just like I think probably everyone who joins my group is looking for knowledge. Because if you Google mantle cell lymphoma, you learn that you're going to die. And I mean, we all start this journey thinking we're not going to make it. And there are people who are at 30 years out with my cancer. Um, so I learned about, like the American Cancer Society and Gilda's Club and things like that that were offering support groups, but those just really weren't. Plus, I was in the hospital all the time. So I went on Facebook to see what might be available there, and I found a group that was fairly established. It had been around for like 5 years, started by a woman whose husband had mantle cell, and there were probably about 1,000 people in there. I met some people who were really nice. I enjoyed them very much. But not everyone was really nice. And the difference between me and some of them was I wanted to talk about my feelings. Um, it's my personality. I'm a touchy-feely person who wants to know about how you're feeling, not what you're feeling. And there were people in the group who didn't necessarily appreciate that. So I was getting some negative feedback, and I decided it wasn't doing me any good to be in that group, and I was going to leave and start my own. That was 8 years ago in May. We celebrated our 8 year anniversary, and
What is the name of your group, Linda?
it's called Mantle Cell Lymphoma: The Journey. And please, if you have mantle cell, join the group. You will love it. I promise you. So once I set everything up, I thought nobody's going to join this group. They all like being in that big group. That's why there are so many members. I had no idea how many more people there were in the world who had mantle cell or had a loved one with mantle cell who needed support. And um, slowly but surely, they started joining. The very first person to join the group is still in the group, and which I'm proud to say because that means she's a survivor. Um, and we now have 2.4 thousand members from 35 different countries, which is just
Phenomenal.
amazing to me. Amazing
Absolutely
to me.
phenomenal.
Yeah.
And also, you shared with me earlier, you run the group 24/7 with how many moderators?
I have a leadership group now of 20 people. So I've sort of I'm kind of anal about this stuff. I just set it up like a small business. So there are different compartments to it, like the moderators and then the administrators who supervise the moderators and help them be effective. And then we have guides. We take advantage of the learning component that Facebook offers groups, and we made those our where we store our guides that is real information, copies of the videos we've created over the years from doctors in the field, everything you can imagine. So people don't have to go on Google and search for it. It's already there. And so I have someone who manages that. We have a separate piece that is geared towards the caregivers because sometimes caregivers want to talk about things that they don't want their loved ones, the patient, to hear. So we have a caregivers conversation, and I have people in charge of that. Um, we have group experts, people who have really solid experience with mantle cell and with other medical things. We have a pharmacist in our group who's a patient. Um, these are all group experts who can weigh in on things. We don't give medical advice, but we do have people who can weigh in on things to help the members form questions that they're going to ask their doctors. That's the purpose of it. And then we have our events calendar. You work with Debbie. She is the person in charge of the events calendar so that whenever someone finds an event that they think people might want to attend, like yours, she'll put them on the calendar so they're all in one spot. We do some of our own Zoom sessions with doctors from MD Anderson, my clinic, my facility in Mayo, at Mayo, my facility here in my community, which is now much more experienced in mantle cell lymphoma. And uh, and so the group we've got, I think we've got 6 administrators who haven't yet learned that if they want, they can bounce me out of the group. And we're always looking for new moderators because with that many members, we really want to make sure that people are being heard and valued and that rules are being followed and that, privacy is important to them. So we want to make sure we have good leadership in the group. And we do. We have great leaders. And we have a great group. When I was about 2 years into this, we reached 350 members. And I was freaked out because I thought we're getting too big. And so I asked the members, should I cap the group at 350 and we don't let anyone else in? Or do we keep going? And they wanted to keep going because they didn't want us to turn anyone who needed to be there away. And they promised me that we would maintain the small town feel of the group, the family. Many of them call it their family, a part of their family. And so we wanted to maintain that. And they promised me they would. And even with 2.4 thousand, 2.4 thousand members, it's still got that small town family feel to it, which is, you can talk about whatever you want to.
Fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. How did you, as you were growing, how did you procure, your different people to help you? Because are, I assume is yours a nonprofit now? No.
No,
Okay.
it's just set up as a Facebook support group.
Okay. So how did you how did you get people to help you along the way? What did you do to acquire those people? Because you got a lot of people.
Got a lot of people. Well, I ran a nonprofit for 25 years.
Hmm.
And so I'm very familiar with observing people and inviting people to come on board to help. It was a success of the programs that I ran. And so I watch people and figure out who the leaders are. And and I go and ask them. And sometimes they're not available. Some of them have gone back to work, or some of them are still dealing with health issues and don't feel like they have the time to commit. But there are always people who are willing and ready to jump in and help. Um, and sometimes I'll put a little blurb, post a little blurb asking for help. And more often now, people are stepping forward when I do that. So I don't need to look as hard anymore.
Of course. I mean, the further you go, it just gets easier. I mean, for instance, I remember it was so hard for me to find people to interview when I first started my channels. And now it's like, I really don't almost feel like I don't have to try to get people because, I get so many referrals now and
Hmm.
things like that. But at the beginning, it was like
Hmm.
I was sweating bullets constantly. And because when I started my channels back in early 2021, and from the day I started, I have not missed posting a video all those weeks. I post once a week, have not missed a week. And that's hard to do. And there's been so many times that I've like, man, I just don't feel like doing this. But
Right.
I don't know, all of a sudden I just say, oh, okay, gotta do it. I have to do it because I remember one time I was like late in posting, and then I started getting all these messages. Hey, where's the video? I'm like, okay. So they didn't even cut me any slack on the time that I posted. So, uh, yeah, I know what
Well,
you mean.
it's a compliment to you, Mark, that people step forward to help you. It's a compliment to the work you're doing.
I need more help, but yeah, we could always use more help. I know. Uh,
Yes.
what, um, what do you want to see with your group moving forward? What do you want to project? What do you see as far as growth and what do you want to interject and and things like that?
I really want the group to be sustainable, with or without me. That's been one of my concerns for a long time. Just to tell your audience, 4 years ago, I got COVID and was hospitalized for 5 weeks on a ventilator and almost didn't make it out alive. Um, and then 2 years ago, I got sepsis and was on a ventilator, hospitalized, and almost didn't survive. So I'm I've been reminded now, a few times that it needs to be sustainable. And if I'm not around, who's going to take over and run the group the way that I've always envisioned it to be run? Because um, I want it to stay the same. It's exactly what people need, I think. At least the people who are in the group now and the people who are joining us are saying, this is exactly what I needed. This is the kind of support I needed, where they can get technical information about the disease, and they can also share their stories and hear from other people that they're not alone in this. Um, and it's part of the reason why I've made my leadership team so large, because there isn't one single one of them that doesn't believe in what I've been doing. Um, and I think collectively, I might start crying now, collectively, if something happens to me, they'll carry on. I don't think they'll let it die. I don't think they'll let it change. I think it'll carry on. So
Fantastic.
that's the most important thing to me, because I just feel like there's such a need for the kind of group that we have.
That is awesome. And what was going through my mind when you were sharing about all the things that you've gone through, and I remember you sharing with me before about all this, and uh, the point is you're here for a reason, and you're here to lead your group, and uh, I mean that is absolutely fantastic what you do. Thank you so much for
Oh,
doing what you do because it's so needed in the community, and if we're all given great effort to do this, we're just going to make it better for people who get cancer in the future. And that's what it's all about. So,
I was talking with one of my moderators last night, someone who's not new to the group, but fairly new as a moderator. And we were chatting, and he said that once he started feeling better, and he was really having a challenging time when he was going through treatment and so on. He said once he felt better, he thought he would leave the group, that he didn't need it anymore. And he said 3 days after he had that thought, somebody posted a question in the group, and he was able to answer it and help that person. And that's when he knew that it was someplace he needed to stay, that it was from that point on about helping others to get the support that they needed. And I think that's what you and I do is, um, we've learned so much from what we've been through. And so we want to help others learn the same so that they can live happily ever after as well.
couldn't have said it any better. I have one final question before we close this out, Linda. And this is not a cancer question. This is a life question. If you had, any superpower necessary, how would you make the world a better place?
Um, yeah, that is a topic that's on my mind constantly in the kind of political climate that we live in, not just in our country, but worldwide. Um, because in my group, we have people who are from some of those war-torn countries, and they're dealing with a rare, incurable cancer at the same time. And I just can't even imagine what that must be like. And my thought is always that we need to somehow change the mentality of our world leaders so that they understand that every single human being, regardless of where they live, the color of their skin, their religion, their race, their income, deserve, they deserve to have a home to live in, food on the table, proper health care, and respect for who they are, as living as living creatures. Um, and I don't know how to make that happen. And I've always been involved in my community, um, on volunteer commissions and so on, because in my little corner of the world, I've tried to make that happen. But to make it bigger, I don't know. I just encourage people to reach out and do whatever they can wherever they live to at least have an effect on their little corner. Um, but those are the things that are really important to us as human beings and to our environment, to nature, to everything. That's the key to everything.
That is beautiful. That is really, really well said.
Oh, thank you.
And I could just tell by your answer that you have thought about that question, uh, very intensely. So thank you so much for sharing your journey, your group. In fact, in the description, we're going to have your links to your group and whatever links that you would want to share. And I'd also like to thank each and every one of you out there for joining us here at To Be Your Own Hero. And here's your commercial. Please like, subscribe, make a comment in the comment section of the video. But most importantly, make the most out of each and every day. And I know Linda feels the same way. We are so lucky to have the opportunity at life when we open our eyes in the morning or in the afternoon or whenever you wake up. Don't waste the opportunity. It's life is too short. And and if you could make a difference in somebody else's life, why not do it? Why not make the effort? And time is our most precious commodity and make the most out of it, every day, every hour, every minute, and every single second. Have a fantastic week, and we will see you next week on To Be Your Own Hero. Thank you very much.